Hello, welcome back to RC Video Reviews. Today we're taking a look at the Volantex Saber 920, which is a little 3D plane I picked up from Value Hobby. You know, I've had so much fun with the Basher brothers, and I've known about this plane for quite a while, but I never really got it because it's a 3D plane and it's EPO. And if you've been following what I've been doing to my Basher brothers, you know this is probably not a great airplane to train on. However, curiosity just got me. I had to know how an EPO plane would fly compared to what I'm seeing on that EPP profile plane, the Hummer, and the EPP airfoil plane, the MX2. When I go fly this one, I will not take the same risks with this that I take with the EPP planes because it's EPO and it'll blow up. So if I crash the way I've been crashing that little MX2, this thing just won't survive. It won't be able to take that kind of punch. As I mentioned, I picked this up from Value Hobby and they sell this in two form factors. There's a kit for $50 and a plug and play for $85. The plug and play will come with all the electronics you need. You just stick a receiver and battery in and off you go. The kit version at $50 comes just the way you see it, and you have to supply all the electronics. So I opted for the kit version because I'm going to be doing a little experimentation with this one. In terms of weight and measures, this is a 500-gram plane all up, so 1.1 pound for those in the US. It's got a 36.2-inch wingspan, a 34-inch length, and again, the material is EPO. The recommended setup for this is a 947 prop with a 30-amp ESC and anywhere from a 1300 to a 2200 3-cell LiPo battery and 4 9-gram servos. So very basic, very budget-friendly setup on this little plane. And I've got some things to tell you about the motor. So we'll get to this in just a little bit. For now, let's take a look at the airframe. Okay, you guys know I like to start with the fuselage, so let's take a look at that first. There's a form-fit plastic piece down here to receive the landing gear. This is a mid-wing design, and the opening for the wing is cut right there. When I get to the other side, I'm going to show you something kind of cool about the way they keyed it. Notice that there's a little bit of ventilation back here and cutouts for the servos. So everything looks decent on the fuselage. The one area that I saw a little bit of an issue right there, some overspray. It's kind of interesting to me how on EPO, sometimes the manufacturers struggle with overspray, but on EPP, they seem to nail it. I really would have thought it would be the other way around because that EPP is so porous. And then you can see the motor just screws in right up front. There's no cowl or any moving parts up here. The motor's just going to slide in. You're going to run your ESC wires through that little hole right there, and that's it. Real simple setup up front. And I don't see any breathing. Yep, that's probably it right there. So this is meant to be the scoop for air. That's cool. It's good. They did it, so it's accounted for, and that's what I care about. And here's the other side of the plane. I mentioned I would show you how they key the plane. So the wing only slides in one way. It slides in from this side. You notice there's a key here, and a key here, and a key here. That's what locks the wing into place. So it's a really cool little design. I've already fit the wing, and I think that'll really help keep it straight and square and make sure you have it in the right spot. So on this side of the fuselage, everything looks fine. I don't see any damage. Little bit of overspray again here, but I mean, it's trivial. You know, it's trivial. It's nothing meaningful to me. All right, I'm going to pop the canopy off and show you that they don't use magnets on this one. They use a little clip. And on the fuselage itself, there's a little plastic nub right there that this clip bites into. So that's actually kind of a cool little design. I'll see how that holds up over time. No magnets on this one. And then there's a look inside the fuselage. Keep in mind the wing's going to be here, so you won't get to use that space. There's a little bit of a better look inside the fuselage so you can see what you've got to work with for things like your receiver and your batteries. I'll know more once I put it together, but there you go. That's a look inside. I think one of the things that drew my attention to this plane was the graphic scheme. Looks really nice. It's just got one of those really basic, reasonably cool looking graphic schemes. Unfortunately, you've got to apply it by yourself on this plane. They don't do any of the decal work on this wing at all. You're on your own. But you can see that it is a one-piece wing, no gluing, which saves time. That's just kind of nice. It comes from the factory flat. You don't have to glue it together, and you know it should be pretty straight. We'll take a look down the edge and see how that looks. Oh, I do see a little bit of a bow in there. Yeah, there is a little bit of a bow in there. Yep. Definitely is a little bit of a bow. I don't know if that's by design or not, but yeah, when I look at it this way, it almost looks like it might be by design, but I don't know. That doesn't really belong on a 3D plane. So yeah, there is definitely a bow in that wing. You don't really see that too often. Normally on these EPO planes, they pretty much have the geometry squared away. That's a little unusual to see that. We'll see what happens in flight because, you know, when you have dihedral like that, one thing that I know now that becomes a little bit of an issue is the knife edge. Because with dihedral, the plane wants to pull out of that knife edge. It wants to roll out of the knife edge. So just like all other EPO planes, this has got EPO hinges for the ailerons. I know some of you guys like to cut these loose and hinge them the correct way. Normally when I get a plane like this, I'll just fly it like this for a little while and keep an eye on it. If it turns into a problem, then I'll cut them free and hinge it. But for now, and for the build and for the maiden, I'll go ahead and use it the way it comes. So I'd say other than that bow, everything on the bottom looks pretty good. I don't see any damage. Oh, so check that out. It's already hinged. It's got mechanical hinges in there. It's really hard to see those. I'll try and get it in the camera so you can see it. Can you see that plastic in there? Yeah, that's hinged. Yep, and they're already in place. That's cool. Not bad. Hey, well, you know, little foreshadowing, right? I called that. And there are the servo cutouts for the ailerons. So 2 ailerons means you can put them on separate channels if you want to. Except for that bow, everything looks okay on the wing. Okay, here's the horizontal stabilizer and elevator. And as you can see, everything looks to be in good nick there, as our British friends would say. And this one's also hinged. Check that out. Hey, they only put a mechanical hinge here on this end and one on this end, which is probably okay. I'm a little surprised they didn't put one right there by that control horn. Just a little bit surprised because that's where the torque hits the surface. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, I got to give them props for at least adding the mechanical hinge. Anyway, that looks good. There are a couple wheel pants that are going to be some kind of glue-on affair, it looks like. And here's the other one. So everything looks fine with those. So Dave's working on a plane right now, and I don't want to give it away yet because that'll be a fun one to talk about on the channel. But his plane has one of these little wings. And I know I was talking about an F3A plane sometime back, and somebody goes, "Oh man, I hate those things. They look so stupid." And I asked Dave about them. I said, what is the purpose behind these little winglets that they put on the top of the canopy? And what he said was, there are 4 factors in flight for a propeller. There's precession, P-factor, torque, and slipstream. What this does is it breaks up the slipstream, so as the prop wash circulates around the airframe, this little wing breaks it up and provides or helps smooth the airflow back to the empennage. So that's what those are for. While they may look kind of silly, if you look at some of the championship F3A planes, they have these on them. So it's kind of cool, I think, that they include one of those. I've never had a plane with one of these before, and while I agree they look a little silly, I'm anxious to try it out. Here are a couple side force generators. These break apart and they'll slip on the wing somewhere near the wingtip. Then the rudder also takes advantage of those mechanical hinges. So you can see here and here, there's mechanical hinges, and then the control horn, when it's time, will go right there. Everything looks good on the rudder. Tail wheel's already installed. Hey, while I'm on the subject of tail wheels, if you're into that MX2, that tail wheel on that thing is awful. I think I'm going to rip that out or cut it off and just put in a zip tie, heavy duty zip tie skid, just like I have on the Hummer. I think that'll be a better solution. I am not getting along with the tail wheel on my MX2 at all. This one, I don't know, it feels a little more rigid, but we'll see. Time will tell. And then I'm guessing these are probably for the landing gear legs. Regarding hardware, it's a pretty robust bag of parts. They actually include a prop in there, which is interesting. The landing gear is already assembled. It's got a prop spinner, and then all the requisite hardware. I can see it in there. It's got control horns and push rods, and there's even a Y cable for the ailerons if you decide to put them on a single channel, and some clevises, push rods. You know, it's the basic stuff that you'd expect. I even see a little screwdriver in there. Hey, little pro tip. I don't know what it is about these little screwdrivers that come in these Chinese ARF kits, but hold on to them because they work really well driving servo screws. I don't know what it is about them, but they're really good. Here are a couple of push rods that look like they're going to be for the tail feathers, and they're already pre-made up, and it looks like a fiberglass tube with threaded rod on both ends with a clevis. So interesting little design, but long push rods for the back. All right, here's the decal sheet. Remember I told you, here's a picture of the plane when it's finished. You've got to do all that stuff on the wings and the tail surfaces. So hope you like doing decals, because you're going to be spending some time on this plane with them, no doubt. But definitely a cool looking scheme when it's done. I like the scheme quite a bit. Very sharp graphic scheme. All right, let's take a look at the manual. And this one, I've read through parts of it. It's in very clear English. The pictures are black and white, but they're clear. And it looks to be very descriptive text explaining what to do on the build. So it's certainly not the best manual I've ever seen, but it looks to be reasonable. And that's good enough for me. It doesn't have to be, not every booklet has to be world class, right? So a lot of details about the plane. It looks fine. The print's a little small. If you wear glasses, you'll probably need them for this one, but it's clear and legible, and that's what counts. Regarding props, the MX2 taught me my lesson, so I've got some spare gem fans that I also picked up from Value Hobby when I placed the order. Let's talk about the motor. The motor spec calls for 2212 1400 kV, which puts out about 200 watts, and it's about a 54-gram motor. Value Hobby sells this G-Force lineup. Remember, I've got that G-Force G32 that performed very strong in the motor shootout. So I got this motor for $6. So I decided I was going to have to give it a try. You know this is going to wind up on the judge, so be on the lookout for that. They claim this motor should produce about 180 watts. All right, now I've got a couple of interesting bits for you. I recently received an email from Altitude Hobby announcing they were now carrying lemon receivers. So I reached out to them and asked them, hey, would you guys be interested in sponsoring a review of lemon receivers? And they replied back and said, why, sure we would. And I also mentioned that I was building this Volantex and I was using a G-Force motor, and I told them how much I liked the Leopard motor, and they said, hey, we'll send you one of those too. Altitude Hobby will be sending me the Leopard motor in the equivalent weight class, which is the Leopard 2830 1290 kV. And I'll be, of course, testing that, putting it on the judge, and comparing it against this more generic G-Force motor from Value Hobby just to see how they stack up. In addition to the motor, I'll also be getting a lemon receiver from Altitude Hobby that I'll bind to the TX16, and that'll give us a chance to evaluate how the lemon receivers perform, in addition to some of the other DSM receivers that I'll be evaluating in upcoming videos. All right, guys, that wraps up my first look at the Volantex Saber 920 from Value Hobby. If you are a regular visitor to RC Video Reviews, but you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, I would appreciate it if you consider hitting subscribe and hit that notification bell, because a full 66% of the views on this channel go to non-subscribers. So I appreciate it if you consider joining us and going along for the ride. For the rest of you who are subscribers already, thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate your comments and your thumbs up and your shares and your likes. And don't forget to hit the t-shirt store and check out my Amazon affiliate links for consumable RC equipment. That's all I've got for today, guys. Take it easy. And regarding the motor, I'll talk about these in just a minute, but and regarding the motor, I've got some things to tell you. Okay, there's a couple of side force generators. These break apart and they'll go right on the wing, you know, there are a couple of side force generators. These break apart and they just slide right over the wingtips near the edge. Here are a couple side force, beep, beep, beep. I recently received an email from Altitude Hobby announcing that they were now carrying lemon receivers. And as you know, I recently received an email.